Hello, welcome to this week's video. Now this week I want to talk about bands playing with tracks inspired by Dave Grohl's rant at Taylor Swift. Here it is if you've been living under a rock and haven't seen it.
That's because we actually play live. What?
Now I can only assume what it's referring to is the fact that Taylor Swift, her musicians will be playing along with a track, whereas the Foo Fighters famously don't play along with track. Now the other person who's weighed in on this argument is Wolfgang Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen's son, who has criticised bands who rely too heavily on track. This is the quote here, saying that people who have 60 tracks of production aren't playing live. So I did a few videos recently about the Eagles miming, and I suggested about them using a track. That's how they had the mimed vocal on it, and there seemed to be some confusion with some people about what that means. So first of all, let me explain what it means if a band are playing along with the track. Now it has to be said, the majority of bands these days in a kind of pop genre or country, anything sort of commercial that's got lots of production on the recordings, they will almost definitely be using tracks when they play live. And the reason is, now let's have a look at this first. This is Jacob Collier. This is one of his sessions, one of his Logic sessions, and each one of those little stripes along there is a different instrument being played or a different vocal harmony part. Now this is a very extreme example, but in pop production you get lots of little bits of sounds here and there that if you want to recreate what the recording sounds like live, the only way you can do it is by having those actual sounds played live through your speakers that are played along with the band, and the way you do that is by using a track. And the other thing is with modern pop music that a vast majority of the song is in the production. It's like, where does the sort of composition stop and the production start? What makes the track? Well, it's everything in modern pop music, the production and the melody line, the lyric, it all combines to make this one thing that makes the song, and you can't really separate them. And if you don't have them when you're playing it live, the song doesn't really exist in the same way. The other reason why bands would have it is if they've got these huge, like with Taylor Swift, you've got these huge productions, you've got screens, you've got scenery moves. Same with, if you go to see theatre shows, they quite often use click tracks because everything's synced together, all the lights, everything, all the projections on the backs of the screens, all of it's linked, so it all has to be on track for it all to work and it all to sync up. So the way it works technically is there will be a percussive clicking in time with the music, normally on the crotchets or the quarter beats. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it'll be a kind of percussive click, quite often almost like a clave sound. I think it does change, but it will be something that you can hear over the rest of the music, like a going along the whole time. But quite often just the drummer might have it, but the whole band can have it. It depends really what it is. Sometimes these tracks even have spoken instructions, and I've done shows before where they might have different musicians in from time to time, and to make sure that the show runs more smoothly, it'll say guitar comes in here or things like that to give you even more instruction so you know what you're doing. Now on this track that you're playing along with the click on is all the instruments that can't be recreated by the musicians on stage playing live. So say for example you've got a keyboard or pianist, guitarist, bass player, drums, then you'll mute the drums, the bass, the keys and the guitar and leave all the other little bits of production on the track. So if there's some sort of string parts or something like that, or extra backing vocals that you can't recreate live, they will be playing on the track and the band will be playing along with that track. So it's effectively like you're playing along with your multi-track recording, but you mute the bits that you can do live. So this also answers the question for the people that wondered how Don Henley could have been miming. The reason is that there's a click track going along that the rest of the band are playing with, and he can hear as well, and his lead vocal is on that track as well. They don't mute the lead vocal on that particular track, and he does that along with it. So it looks like he's singing. So that's how you would do it. Now Dave Grohl, he is basically saying that Taylor Swift isn't playing live. He's not accusing her of miming, but I think what he's suggesting is with the Foo Fighters, they just get up and play. They can just, those guys just with their instruments are making that sound. That's not the case with Taylor Swift. The band are making a sound, but if you were to turn the track off, it would sound completely different. Now strangely, I've got a good example of this. Many years ago I was doing a corporate gig, and Will Young, no, people in the UK will know who he is. I don't know whether he ever made it in the States, but he was a big star, and he came off one of Simon Cowell's first kind of reality shows. In fact, was Simon Cowell one of the judges then? It was one of the first kind of Britain's Got Talent things, or I can't remember what it was called. Years ago, he didn't even win, I don't think, but he became a big star off the back of it. And I played at a corporate event and I was playing in the support band, and we were supporting Will Young, and he had this amazing band of these amazing musicians, these kind of guys that I think they'd grown up playing sort of gospel stuff, and the drum had all these gospel chops, and they were all fantastic backing vocalists as well, and they were playing along with the track. And I heard them sound checking with the track, and something happened, I can't remember during the sound check or after the sound check, that their thing that had the track on, the device that was playing it, broke, so they had to do the gig without it. And it was quite interesting because they did the gig without it, and they were such phenomenal musicians. You didn't need all that other stuff, and in some ways it made it better. Now, it was funny, I do remember one moment from this gig, this sort of massive fill, this drum fill, he's got the biggest drum sound, the most going absolutely crackers, he went, and then Will Young went, why does it hurt all the time? So what are the disadvantages of playing along with the track? Well, I guess the thing that Dave Grohl's probably getting at is that when you've got a live band playing live, there's an energy there, and if it's going well, I don't know whether the Foo Fighters do this, but from my point of view, if it's going well, you can extend sections. Sometimes the band might speed up because you feel like the energy's there, or whether it be intentional or unintentional. And there's something restrictive about playing with tracks. You can't speed up, you've got to stick within the same format. You can't extend sections, you can't push and pull the tempo. Now, that isn't to say that great musicians can't sound good playing over a click. I mean, sometimes I play with drummers and I haven't got the click myself, and I wouldn't know that they're playing along with the click because they're so good at doing it, and they can, within the confines of it, they can push and pull the tempo a little bit and still make it sound really good. So, and probably the audience won't ever notice, but you won't ever get those really exciting moments. And to illustrate that, I'm just going to show you this very short clip of Van Halen. I think it was 1985, this, at the Monsters of Rock Festival at Donington. They're doing Hot for Teacher here, and it's faster than the record, and you know, there's the slower section as well, but the energy here, and you know, whether it be adrenaline or substances consumed, I don't know, but just check this out. This is just phenomenal, the energy here, and you wouldn't get this if they were playing along with the track. Now, of course, it would be remiss of me to miss out one of possibly the biggest fails of using a track that ever happened with the same band that we just saw. In 2007, you've probably seen this clip, but Van Halen, because they haven't got a keyboard player, they use a track to play the keyboard part from Jump. And unfortunately, on this particular occasion, there is a technical reason again, but there's a sample rate that you can use, different sample rates, which is how many sections the music, the digital information is cut up per second, and you can set it. I think the problem with this, what's coming up here, it could be 44.1 or 48, and they had it set on the wrong one, and what it means is it detunes it, and so this keyboard part, the Jump keyboard part, was completely out of tune. It wasn't even a semitone out of tune, it was somewhere in between. So Eddie starts playing his guitar over this track and it's completely out of tune. So here's another good reason why you shouldn't use track, because it can go horribly wrong like this. Now, I saw a news item, I think it was last summer or the summer before, there was a band called Porcupine Tree, who I have to confess I don't know what they sound like, but their bass player unfortunately was unable to continue the tour for personal reasons, but they continued the tour with his bass parts on the track, so presumably they were playing along with the track anyway, and he was like, well, see you later, and they just unmuted his bass track and carried on regardless, which is interesting. I mean, it's, you know, you can't imagine on that Van Halen thing that, you know, if Michael Anthony suddenly got ill, it's not going to sound the same, is it, if they just somehow had his bass track on something? It's just not going to work. And because personally, some of the greatest moments I've seen on live gigs were bands that definitely weren't using track. Now, one of my favourite bands is Little Feat, and I saw them 3 times. This was back probably 15 or so years ago, and the first time I saw them, it was all the original members except Lowell George, obviously, because he died in the 70s. With the singer who was doing it at the time, Sean Murphy, and they did Dixie Chicken, and they do this kind of extended improvisational section in the middle, and the very first time I saw them, it was just Bill Payne doing, I'm not always a big fan of what he does when he goes too jazzy, but he did this section, this improvised section, and it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. It just went somewhere, and the band followed, and just the energy, and it was obviously spontaneous, that they were reacting to what he was doing, and it just went off in a direction. And I know it wasn't with track because I saw them 2 times after that. The second time they just got rid of Sean Murphy, and it wasn't very good. They had to play a lot of their later stuff because none of them could sing the Lowell George stuff that Sean Murphy used to cover. And I remember the Dixie Chicken thing wasn't as exciting, and the last time I saw them, Richie, the drummer, had died, so they had Gabe Ford on drums, and that Dixie Chicken thing wasn't as good. But I would still say I'd rather have heard that one phenomenal time where it went off on one, and then the 2 that weren't so good, than 3 with a track that sounded the same every time. So that's just an example of why I think for that type of music, and the type of music I like, probably bands that aren't playing with track would be my preference. So in conclusion, I have to say I don't really know exactly what Dave Grohl was getting at, but I assume it's about track. And all the musicians that are playing with Taylor Swift, they are playing live, they're playing over the track, and it would sound very different if it was just all of those instruments on the track and exactly the same every time. Those bits that are on the track, their production is probably backing vocals, and it gives it that big full sound. And let's face it, you're not going to a Taylor Swift concert to hear these long improvisational passages of these musicians off the spur of the moment going off on a musical tangent and doing something very clever that most people don't understand. You're going to watch an amazing show with this huge production and everything. I mean, it's horses for courses, isn't it? And you know, there's probably shows that I've been to that's been loads on track and I've thoroughly enjoyed, and there's also gigs that I've been to where there've been no tracks and I've enjoyed that for what that is. So there we are. I don't think Dave Grohl wins this argument particularly, nor does Taylor Swift. It's horses for courses. You have to do what you're going to do, don't you? And I'm going to leave you with a little snippet of my band playing. No track involved here, but the funny thing is we were filming a video, and Mike, the keyboard player, he'd done about 3 different keyboard parts on these tracks we were going to do. So instead of us doing it on track, he got 2 of his students to come and play keyboards as well. So we had 3 keyboard players on here covering all the parts rather than using a track. So there we are. In my opinion, I don't particularly like playing along with track, and if it's my own music, I'd rather miss bits out and just do it live. So hope you enjoy this track. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave me a comment. I bring out new videos 7 PM UK time every Friday, so I hope to see you next week.
I put off all wheels on the blacktop. If all these dreams turn to dust in my hand, don't wanna lose them all, no county maintain, cause any rock can be ground in the sand. So these small chips through my window, the sun's burning a hole in the sky. It's getting hot in here already, burning up like a Texas sunrise. The AC's broke and the windows jammed. I can make you a little space here if you lend me a hand. Don't know where I'm going, can't remember all the places I've been. I'm on this road halfway to somewhere.